I talk about Pat simply because he was a dear friend. It's as simple as that. And when you lose a dear friend and you realize how dear he was as a friend, when you hear he's dead, he's gone, you suddenly begin to appreciate, and it comes at you like a volume of memories, a flood of memories of all the times he helped me in life. Now, he helped me commercially because I was a writer, and I wrote books. And the first time I came across him was in 1989 when the BBC asked me if I could write a book about the famous Glasgow Derby matches. And I did, and it was called Blue and Green. Now, I can't remember exactly when I first met him about that, but I certainly knew he had been writing Celtic books, so I went in, researched them, and I think it was Tom Campbell he had written a particular one. Can't remember the title of it, but in any case, it was a means of getting to know him. And when I got to know him, I suppose I was kind of surprised because he was so quiet. I mean, I had to draw things out of him. And of course, when you got things out of him, you suddenly saw the revelation of the kind of things that I was seeking. Now, I lived, as you can probably expect, ladies and gentlemen, in a very hostile world. Some people were quite critical, and sometimes I felt coming to meet Pat was like refuge. It was like getting away from what you had to do, and he gave me great relief. So at first, he was simply a researcher, a brilliant researcher. Now, as a writer, you cannot understand how wonderful it is to be able to relax and know that your facts and your figures are correct. Now, I can't claim that Pat and I together got everything right 100%, but I'm damn sure there was nobody else could have helped me to get and attain that position. There he was beside me. And, you know, I can see it in my mind's eye now. The number of times I used to drive down to Springboy, pick him up, take him back to the house, and there we would sit, fed by my wife, who loved Pat, and sadly can't be here today because he's not well. And there we were, a trio discussing not just my book, but about life, about himself, about politics, about good books. Because as Terry has pointed out, he was simply well read. He loved literature, he loved good writing, and he could talk to you about that. And of course, he was especially wonderful when I wrote the book about Jock Stein. Stein was the giant, and it was difficult to write with the knowledge that so many other people knew about him, and that was a challenge. But with Pat sitting beside you, you knew you weren't putting a foot wrong. You knew he was treading the same path that Stein had trod, and he had been in Lisbon. And I don't know if any of you have heard, which I heard by accident. Somebody sent me it. I think it was Bernard Ponsonby. And it was Pat describing the day in Lisbon with pictures set in. Put up your hand if you've heard this. Have you heard it? Oh, well, that's terrible. There's so many people. Try, if you can, to listen to Pat's description of Lisbon, of his comparison between the dark grey industrial city that the Celtic support left behind to go into the wonderful sunlight of Lisbon, the streets of Lisbon. And whoever at Celtic Park did it marvellously, because the words and the pictures match brilliantly. So do try and get that. I'll tell you what, you'll be weeping when you do eventually hear it. So try that. So that's what he meant to me, not just commercially and helping me out with books, and particularly as I was talking about steam, because what you did have to have was that kind of backup. And at first he was simply the man who helped me turn a page or two from my book. And then as we got to know each other and talked about politics, talked about life in general, talks about his likes and dislikes, I got to know him better. And it's a pity my wife isn't here today, she apologizes. But she's witness to the fact, on 2 occasions, he actually threw money back at me, literally. He wouldn't take a penny for anything he did with me. I'd simply had to go up. In fact, you felt as if you were insulting him by offering some money. So in that sense, he was unique. He was simply a unique personality. And sometimes I think people might have taken his quiet, elusive character as the man himself. But underneath all that, there was the talent, as was pointed out brilliantly by Terry. Yes, I'm saddened by his loss, even more than I thought I would be, because he meant so much to me. Not just in what I produced, but in what I felt in the heart about a decent human being who was an example to us all. Goodbye, Pat. You were a great friend. I'll never forget you.